The miraculous story of the former heavyweight world champion and future heavyweight champion. Driven by an impoverished childhood, Foreman channels his anger to become the heavyweight world champion, followed by a near-death experience that takes him from the ring to the pulpit, based on true events. Foreman lived with his mother and siblings, and they were very poor, barely having enough to eat. But Mary, his kindest sister, would give him some of her food. George loved her for that. His mother advised him to commit to school and stop fighting, but at school, he was discriminated against, even by the teacher, because of his shabby clothes. The other kids made fun of him for being poor, so he beat up a boy who was bothering him. However, the teacher saw it, and he had to run away. As he grew older, Foreman turned to robbery, but during one of his heists, he and his accomplices attacked a policeman who had set a trap for them. Foreman did everything he could to escape, including covering himself in excrement to avoid detection by police dogs, losing all dignity in the process. He enlisted in the armed forces because they provided food, housing, and a small salary. His mother told him to finish what he started. While there, he discovered that his mother had given him a pair of Converse sneakers. Initially, he clashed with Desmond, a heavy drinker, but they eventually became friends. One day, Foreman saw a boy wearing the sneakers his mother had given him, so he chased him. The boy locked himself in a room, but Foreman broke down the door and was about to hit him when Broaddus intervened, preventing a tragedy. Broaddus saw that Foreman only knew how to solve problems with his fists, so he took him to a boxing ring, trained him, and taught him basic techniques. He explained that boxing was not just about hitting but also about using your brain to anticipate the opponent's moves. After just a few days of training, Foreman knocked out a boy who had been training for months. Broaddus saw great potential in George, who aimed to become the world champion. He fought match after match, defeating his opponents and winning gold medals, inching closer to his goal. Despite this, the boys from his neighborhood felt he wasn't representing them or the country. His mother advised him to ignore what others said. During this time, he met Paula, a writer who was reading about him, and they started talking. George continued his training alongside great champions, which intimidated him but didn't dampen his spirits. He kept winning and speaking with Paula, standing strong in the ring, showcasing his skills. He delivered powerful punches, progressed to the next level, and married Paula. George continued his victories in the ring until it was time to face the current champion, the moment he had been waiting for all his life. When the match began, the reigning champion attacked fiercely, landing one punch after another. But Foreman knocked the champion down twice, ultimately defeating him and becoming the new heavyweight world champion. Foreman began to enjoy his fame and appointed the drunkard Desmond as his accountant. That same night, he succumbed to temptation and was unfaithful to his beloved wife. Foreman knew exactly what he was doing but continued to indulge in luxury and fame. He cherished his beautiful daughter while Mary, his dear sister, was expecting a baby. Paula discovered her husband's infidelities. Having given up everything for him, she was devastated, but Foreman was only concerned with maintaining his championship and being the best. He didn't even apologize to his wife, his only focus was his lifestyle and fame. Meanwhile, Ali, the challenger, was ready to take him down. They despised each other, but Foreman was confident he would defeat Ali, as no one believed Ali could beat the current champion. In the ring, Foreman demonstrated his power, but Ali, a very strong opponent, countered his punches on the ropes, wearing Foreman down with every hit. By the 8th round, Foreman was exhausted and unable to deliver strong punches, allowing Ali to knock him out and win the match. When Foreman returned home, he found that Paula had left with their daughter. His mother, who always supported him, was there. Foreman hid for 6 months before coming out to challenge 5 men, with Ali watching the entire fight. The crowd chanted Ali's name, and they wanted to see them fight again, but it wasn't allowed. Foreman was mentally shattered. He then learned that his sister Mary was about to die along with her baby during childbirth. For the first time, he prayed to God for a miracle, just as his mother did. Foreman deeply loved his sister, one of the most cherished people in his life. By the grace of God, Mary experienced a miracle, and both she and the baby survived. Mary named the baby George in honor of her brother. Foreman returns to fighting, but after his defeat to Ali, he's never been the same. He no longer boxes like he used to and continues losing fights. Eventually, he collapses and hears distant voices without knowing where they come from. People think he's dead, but he wakes up saying he needs to purify himself and that Jesus Christ lives in him. Foreman turns to God and becomes a new brother in Christ, finding a new purpose and path in life. He decides to dedicate his life to God and tells Broaddus that he's retiring from boxing, breaking Broaddus' heart. He confirms his retirement by asking Ali for forgiveness, as he hated him greatly, and announces that he will become a preacher. Foreman goes to Paula to apologize for everything he did and how he treated her. He changes his lifestyle and meets Neri, starting to preach even in the streets despite people mocking him. Foreman shows he has changed, deepening his relationship with Neri. With his substantial earnings, he buys a church and becomes its new preacher. A mother asks him to teach her son to box, but he refuses, believing it's not the way to solve problems. When he later sees on the news that the boy was arrested for robbery, he feels guilty for not helping. Foreman then buys a building to convert into a boxing ring to help community kids, funded by the money he earned as a champion. Feeling fulfilled by helping so many kids, Foreman is shocked when the electricity is cut off because it had never been paid for. At the bank, he learns that Desmond made high-risk investments and lost all his money. Faced with foreclosure if they don't pay soon, Foreman loses everything he worked for. Despite his mother's advice that everything he needs is in his heart, they are now bankrupt. Finding Desmond, he nearly kills him in anger. To raise money, Foreman does commercials and signs pamphlets, but the church collections are insufficient. He ends up selling everything he has but is still far from raising what they need, losing the youth center in the process. Ashamed, he doesn't want to face his church members, and he tells Neri he wants to return to the ring, as preaching doesn't pay the bills. Foreman asks Broadus to train him again, but Broadus is still heartbroken. Additionally, Foreman is out of shape and overweight. Broadus agrees to train him if he loses the weight. Determined, Foreman embarks on a strict diet and rigorous exercise regimen. Broadus is happy to see Foreman back in the ring, but Foreman is still far from being in fighting shape, quickly tiring out. His wife Neri, despite her initial reluctance, dreams that God told her Foreman would become the heavyweight champion again, believing that God will use him to make his name known to thousands. After 10 years, Foreman returns to the ring to face Steve, a fighter in similar condition. Though physically unfit, Foreman counters the attacks, showing the fighting spirit he's always had. He wins his comeback match and continues to win with the support of his wife Neri and his family. Foreman then goes to the bank with a significant amount of money, enough to stop fighting. However, Neri's vision becomes reality, and Foreman faces the current world champion, Michael. The risk now is not just losing but surviving, as Foreman is old and tires quickly in the ring. Struggling in the fight, he recalls how he spent his life fighting, driven by the world's hatred. But he has changed, becoming someone renewed who uses his brain as much as his fists. Ultimately, Foreman knocks out his opponent, becoming the new heavyweight champion, praying on his knees before the world. Together with his trainer, he achieved this victory, proving that one must hit rock bottom to appreciate what they have and never give up.